Perched on the jagged coastlines of Massachusetts, lighthouse keeper homes cling to the edge of the Atlantic, battered by wind and waves. By day, they are scenic relics, standing proudly against the crashing surf. By night, they are sentinels of the unseen. Shadows stretch across weathered porches. Lanterns flicker with no source of light. And the air carries whispers of lighthouse keepers long gone, of sailors lost at sea, and of tragedies that refuse to be forgotten. Visitors report seeing pale figures pacing along porches. Ghostly hands pressing against windows. And shadows moving along halls where no living person walks. Some swear that the waves themselves carry memory, slapping against rocks in rhythm with distant, mournful cries. A few who linger too long say the homes seem alive, creaking and groaning under the weight of past lives, warning the living to leave. Tonight, my dear friend, we will step into these haunted lighthouse keeper homes. We will walk along narrow hallways, peer into abandoned rooms, and listen to whispers carried by the sea wind. We will uncover the most haunted lighthouse keeper homes in Massachusetts, where every beam, every window, and every room holds a story. And the restless refuse to leave. So tell me, if you were standing alone at a lighthouse keeper home at midnight, and a pale figure appeared on the porch, staring silently. Would you step closer to see who it is, or would you retreat toward the safety of the mainland before the shadows reach you? Hello, my dear friend. I am so glad you are here tonight, safe and warm, because the lighthouse keeper homes we are about to explore are not for the faint of heart. Massachusetts lighthouse keeper homes were once centers of life and vigilance, where keepers lived to guide ships safely along the treacherous coast. Over the decades, many homes were abandoned, left to weather the storms and ocean spray alone. Yet the history remains. Visitors report shadows moving along porches and hallways, figures appearing and vanishing in empty rooms, and lights flickering with no electricity. Some have felt icy hands brush their arms or shoulders. Others have heard whispers, soft moans, or distant voices carried on the crashing waves. The air inside these homes at night is thick with salt, sea mist, and memory. Shadows twist along stairwells and railings. Some have seen lanterns floating above rooms with no hand holding them. Others feel the presence of unseen watchers pacing silently beside them. And many swear that the homes themselves seem alive, groaning beneath floors and walls, warning those who dare to enter. Before we explore these haunted lighthouse keeper homes together, my friend, I want to ask you something. And I hope you will answer it in the comments. If you were alone in a lighthouse home at midnight, and you heard your name whispered from a darkened room, would you step closer to see who is calling? Or would you leave immediately, hoping the spirit lets you go? Take a deep breath. Steady your heartbeat. And let us explore the most haunted lighthouse keeper homes in Massachusetts. Black Rock Lighthouse Home stands perched on a jagged cliff, its weathered exterior battered by years of relentless storms and salt-laden winds. The paint peels along the edges, and the wooden beams creak under the weight of countless seasons. By day, it appears solemn and silent, a monument to time and endurance, yet when night falls, the house comes alive in ways unseen by the casual observer. Figures begin to appear along the porches, their forms indistinct but unmistakably human in posture. The night air carries the faint scent of salt and seaweed, mingling with the subtle creaks and groans of the old structure. The house itself seems to breathe, each board and railing absorbing the history of those who once lived within its walls. Lanterns flicker with no one holding them, casting wavering light that dances across the weathered surfaces. Shadows stretch and twist, merging with the forms on the porches, creating the illusion of a presence larger than the figures themselves. Each flicker reveals fragments of faces, hands resting on railings, and the rhythmic sway of steps repeated in an eternal pattern. Visitors walking near the lighthouse report hearing soft footsteps along the porches and halls, though the rooms remain empty. The sounds rise and fall in cadence with the distant crash of waves against the cliffs. At times, whispers seem to drift from the corners of rooms, unintelligible but unmistakably human. They call out names, questions, or perhaps memories long forgotten, carried on the salt-tinged wind. The interior of the home is no less alive. Figures glide past doorways, lingering in dimly lit rooms. The rooms hold the weight of countless nights, each one imprinted with the presence of those who lived, worked, and awaited the light of the lighthouse beacon. The porch, the most visible and haunting part of the house, serves as a stage for these apparitions. Figures traverse the length of the boards, pause at the railings, and glance toward the sea, as if scanning for returning ships. Lanterns flicker at their side, illuminating faces etched with both longing and quiet sorrow. The movement is deliberate, a silent vigil maintained for reasons known only to the house itself. Outside, the wind carries the low, mournful sighs of the lighthouse home. Each gust rattles windows and shakes shutters, yet the figures remain, undeterred. They seem bound to the house, moving through night after night, tethered to memories that refuse to fade. Visitors may feel eyes upon them as they approach, the weight of unseen attention brushing against the skin, a reminder that this place is more than wood and stone. The lighthouse itself, though long inactive as a beacon, casts a spectral presence over the home. Its tower stands tall and stoic, reaching into the dark sky, a sentinel that has witnessed countless storms and shipwrecks. At night, the tower seems to hum with energy, a low vibration felt more than heard, echoing through the walls and floors. It is as though the home and the lighthouse share a consciousness, alive with memory and the echo of lives once present. Time within Blackrock Lighthouse home is fluid. Night stretches and bends, shadows elongate. And figures appear and disappear at intervals that defy understanding. Steps echo repeatedly in the halls, only to vanish into silence. Lanterns sway in unseen hands, and whispers linger long after the air has cleared. The house does not sleep. It waits, watches, and remembers. With the first light of dawn, the figures retreat, fading into corners, behind walls, and into the shadows of the porch. Lanterns extinguish without flicker, leaving the house in its daytime quiet. Yet for those who witnessed the night, the memory of movement, whispers, and flickering light remains, a haunting imprint that endures. Blackrock Lighthouse Home is a sentinel of the past, a keeper of stories, and a place where time is both present and memory. The home stands as a monument to endurance, solitude, and memory. Figures continue to pace the porches, footsteps echo along the floors, and lanterns flicker without source. Whispers float through the night air, tethered to the walls and boards. For visitors, the experience is at once unsettling and mesmerizing, a journey into a space where the past lingers in every shadow, every creak, and every flicker of light. Blackrock Lighthouse Home does not merely exist, it remembers, and it moves, keeping vigil over the cliff and the sea beyond. Wittawa's Cove Lighthouse Home stands atop a rocky promontory. The lighthouse has guided countless sailors through fog and storm. Yet it carries a history far darker than any storm it has withstood. Keepers who once tended its light vanished without a trace, leaving the building to linger between solitude and memory. A silent witness to lives swallowed by the sea. The exterior is weathered, with salt-stained walls and rusting iron railings, yet it exudes a quiet dignity. Approaching the lighthouse, one notices shadows moving in ways that seem almost deliberate, though the wind bends them into unnatural forms. Figures appear in hallways and along staircases, their presence fleeting yet unmistakable. They glide silently, never fully forming, always at the edge of perception, leaving behind the faintest impression of a life once lived. Inside, the rooms feel heavy with the weight of absence. Wooden floors creak underfoot, yet the sound is often accompanied by echoes that do not belong to the visitor. Footsteps, soft and deliberate, traverse corridors long abandoned. The smell of salt and aged timber fills the air, mingling with a dampness that seems almost alive, curling around corners and under doors. Every shadow holds a suggestion of motion, every draft carries a whisper of presence. Hallways twist and turn, leading to observation rooms where the original keepers once monitored the turbulent sea. Figures in uniform seem to pause at windows, gazing out toward the horizon. Their glances are distant, focused on waters that stretch endlessly, and yet, when noticed, they vanish into the walls, leaving only the lingering impression of eyes that watched faithfully even in absence. Visitors often feel the pull of those unseen observers, as if the lighthouse itself demands recognition for the souls it once sheltered. Staircases spiral upward toward the lantern room, the heart of the lighthouse. Each step is accompanied by subtle, unplaceable sounds, the scraping of metal, the whisper of cloth against a railing, a soft sigh carried on the wind. Figures appear along the stairs, glancing silently before fading into corners or behind doorframes. The air grows colder and heavier with each ascent, the fog from outside seeping through cracks, bringing with it distant moans that drift across the waves and into the Buldinga's very bones. The great light, now dormant during the night, once swept across the waters with unwavering precision. Visitors report seeing ghostly figures tracing the arc of the light, hands poised as though turning the mechanism, faces obscured but filled with intent. The room vibrates with unseen energy, a rhythm that echoes the ocean itself, carrying with it whispers and soft moans that reach the ears even over the roar of waves outside. Every room holds a story. Sleeping quarters are filled with the faint scent of old linens. And shadows cling to the corners where keepers once rested. Kitchens carry the echoes of utensils in motion. The quiet tap of plates set aside. Even the small study, lined with ledgers and charts, seems alive, with papers stirring gently as if moved by invisible hands. The lighthouse records not only the passing of time, but the memories embedded within its walls, preserving them in subtle movements and sounds that remind visitors they are never truly alone. Outside, the cliffs are treacherous, yet the presence of the lighthouse keeps one rooted in observation. Figures appear along walkways and balconies, lingering near the railings, eyes fixed on the waters below. Their forms are indistinct, yet their intent is clear. They are watchers, guardians, or perhaps remnants of those lost at sea, returning nightly to inhabit the space where they once lived and worked. The wind carries faint moans, voices that seem to call out to those who have ventured too close, reminding all that the sea has long memories and the lighthouse keeps its own. Even in the stillness of night, the building hums with life unseen. Footsteps echo along hallways, shadows shift in corners, and figures glide silently past open doors. Visitors report an awareness that extends beyond sight and sound. A subtle sensation that someone or something is accompanying their movements, observing their presence, and leaving impressions that linger long after departure. The lighthouse becomes a vessel for these experiences, a bridge between the tangible and the remembered. The surrounding landscape is part of the story. Waves crash against the jagged rocks, mist rises and drifts through windows and doorways, and the willow-like tendrils of seaweed brush against the stone steps. Every creak of timber, every groan of metal, every shifting shadow contributes to a narrative of absence and remembrance. The elements themselves seem to participate in the haunting, carrying whispers and moans along the cliffs and into the heart of the lighthouse. Every creak of timber, every groan of metal, every shifting shadow contributes to a narrative of absence and remembrance. The elements themselves seem to participate in the haunting, carrying whispers and moans along the cliffs and into the heart of the lighthouse. And the willow-like tendrils of seaweed brush against the stone steps and the elements themselves seem to participate in the haunting, carrying whispers and moans along the cliffs and into the heart of the lighthouse. Every creak of timber, every groan of metal, every shifting shadow contributes to a narrative of absence and remembrance, and the elements themselves seem to participate in the haunting, carrying whispers and moans along the cliffs and into the heart of the lighthouse. Wittawa's Cove Lighthouse Home endures as more than a building. It is a repository for memory, loss, and lingering presence. Figures appear in hallways, shadows twist unnaturally, and soft moans drift over the waves, creating an experience that is as much felt as seen. Visitors leave with an impression that the lighthouse is alive. In its own right, a sentinel not only for sailors, but for the souls it shelters, keeping their stories alive in every corner, every staircase, and every echo of its enduring walls. Ashen Grove Lighthouse Home rises on the cliffside, its structure battered by years of wind and salt spray. The white paint peels from the walls, and the wooden floors groan under the weight of time. Windows are clouded with grime, some cracked, letting in shards of moonlight that cut through the darkness. The lighthouse home holds a quiet presence. Figures crouch in corners, silent and still, watching the few who dare to approach. They are fleeting shapes at first, glimpsed from the corner of the eye, then gone as one turns to face them. The home seems alive, aware of each movement, each breath, each hesitant step taken along the warped floors and staircases. Shadows move with a mind of their own. They stretch and shift across walls, pooling in the corners, detaching from the forms that might have cast them. A shadow may linger near the staircase, then vanish to appear by a window overlooking the cliffs. These subtle movements defy explanation, creating a sense that the lighthouse home itself is in constant motion, observing and responding to all who enter. Visitors experience more than just sight. Icy hands brush against arms and shoulders, leaving a chilling awareness of unseen touch. The creak of floorboards, the tapping of a shutter in the wind, and the whisper of the ocean below combine into a chorus of quiet disquiet. Occasionally, the faintest murmur drifts along the hallways, as though the house remembers conversations long past, echoing them into the night. Time feels distorted within the lighthouse. Minutes stretch and contract unpredictably. Figures appear in one corner, vanish, and reappear in another, creating a sense of continuous movement and shifting space. The home interacts with those who wander its rooms, altering perception with every step. The structure itself tells a story. The figures glimpsed within the corners, the shadows detached from their forms, the icy brushes of Era, all are fragments of the lighthouse's ongoing narrative, a living chronicle of all who have occupied it and those who linger unseen. Every small detail gains significance. A swinging lantern, a subtle movement in the corner, the sudden creak of a floorboard, these all demand attention. The home rewards observation, offering deeper insight to those who notice the faintest anomalies in its aged frame. Figures retreat into shadow, unseen hands vanish, and the building resumes the quiet dignity of a lighthouse standing sentinel over the cliffs. Yet the memory of the night lingers, carried by those who entered, leaving a sense of presence that refuses to fade with daylight. Ashen Grove Lighthouse Home exists in duality. By day, it is simply a weathered building perched on the edge of the sea. By night, it transforms into a living space where memory, presence, and shadow converge. Figures move, shadows detach, and unseen hands brush visitors, leaving impressions that are both chilling and profound. The experience transcends the physical. This is not merely wood and stone, it is a record of consciousness and memory. Every shadow, every figure, every cold touch is part of an ongoing dialogue between the living and the unseen. Visitors leave carrying more than images, they carry awareness of the persistent presence that dwells within the lighthouse. Even in emptiness, the home communicates. The structure observes quietly, recording every step, every breath, every intrusion. It is a witness, a keeper of memories, and a space where the unseen is allowed to exist alongside the living. Figures rise, shadows drift, and unseen hands continue their silent interactions. The building waits, patient and deliberate, offering experiences that challenge perception and invite reflection. Ashen Grove Lighthouse Home is a place of quiet presence, a convergence of past and present, and a testament to the unseen forces lingering in abandoned spaces. For those who enter, the lighthouse offers a singular experience. It is not simply a building, but an entity that observes, interacts, and remembers. Each hallway, shadow, and brush of icy air tells a story. Every moment spent inside is an opportunity to witness the persistence of presence and memory. Ashen Grove Lighthouse Home endures, vigilant and aware, a silent guardian over both land and sea, welcoming those who approach under the cover of night. Hollow Creek Lighthouse Home stands perched on a rugged cliff overlooking the winding creek below. By day, it appears serene, its whitewashed walls catching the sunlight, the waves of grass around the cliff swaying gently in the breeze. Yet as night descends, the house transforms, taking on an air of quiet unease, a presence that is felt more than seen. Shadows glide silently along the stairways, moving with an unnatural grace. They drift across worn wooden floors and up the narrow steps, leaving no sound of movement, yet a subtle tension hangs in the air, as if the house itself is aware of every step taken within it. Doors open and close with no wind to stir them, creating a rhythm that is both unsettling and mesmerizing, a pattern that seems to anticipate the visitor's movements. The lighthouse tower, rising above the home, casts its long shadow across the cliff and creek. Within, the spiral staircase winds upward, its steps echoing faintly, though no one is visible. Figures appear briefly along the landings, silhouettes that vanish as soon as they are noticed. Visitors often report a sensation of being watched, a presence brushing past their shoulders or lingering just behind. It is not malevolent, yet it is insistent, a reminder that the home is shared with unseen inhabitants. Each room holds its own quiet history, the remnants of lives once lived and echoes of moments suspended in time. The kitchen is cold and silent, yet sometimes the faint scent of old firewood lingers, and the soft creak of a chair can be heard as if someone unseen has just shifted. The bedrooms, with their high ceilings and narrow windows, are cloaked in shadow. Lanterns, though unlit, seem to pulse faintly with a glow when approached, illuminating pale faces that vanish when directly observed. Closets and alcoves harbor fleeting shapes, glimpses of figures frozen in motion, captured between worlds. The lighthouse home feels alive, responding subtly to the presence of visitors, guiding, observing, and reminding all who enter that they are not alone. Upstairs, the master stairwell holds a particularly strong presence. Shadows appear to rise along the banister, pacing slowly, tracing a path that seems familiar, yet unknown. The sound of footsteps follows, though no one is there. Occasionally, soft whispers drift from the corners, unintelligible, carried on an unseen draft. The house seems to breathe with a rhythm of its own, the walls and floors pulsing subtly beneath every step. Windows look out over the creek, reflecting the moonlight and the motion of unseen figures. In the glow, visitors sometimes catch sight of pale faces in the water's reflection, fleeting and ephemeral. The tide moves quietly below, carrying with it the faint scent of salt and forest, blending with the echoes from within the home. Lanterns float briefly along the hallways, drifting without hands, illuminating shadows that shift and stretch across the floors and walls. Each evening, the lighthouse beacon swings slowly above the cliff, casting light across the landscape. The motion is steady and rhythmic, yet within the house, a different time seems to exist. Stairs stretch longer, corridors narrow or widen, and figures appear where there should be none. The home itself becomes a labyrinth of memory and presence, drawing the visitor deeper into its silent mysteries. The creaking of floorboards is a familiar companion, yet the sound often contradicts the visible motion. A board may shift as a figure glides past, or remain still while a presence brushes unseen. The interplay of sound and shadow disorients and fascinates simultaneously, creating a sense that the house remembers every step, every glance, every whisper of those who enter. The living spaces, though empty of humans, retain the warmth of life. A faint scent of old wood, mixed with the lingering aroma of candle wax, fills the air. Tables hold objects placed delicately, untouched, as if waiting for an invisible inhabitant. Visitors feel drawn to explore yet hesitate, aware that their movements are being observed by presences that exist alongside them. Outside, the cliff drops sharply to the creek below, the water reflecting the night sky and the occasional glimmer of lantern light from within. The wind carries distant sounds, a soft chants, whispers, and the low moan of the tide against the rocks. These sounds blend seamlessly with the echoes of footsteps and doors within the lighthouse, creating a symphony of subtle unease. Those who stay within the Hollow Creek Lighthouse home for any length of time describe a sense of timelessness. Hours can feel like minutes, and minutes like hours. Shadows shift in ways that defy expectation. And the gentle sway of the lighthouse beacon casts changing patterns across floors and walls. Figures may rise silently along stairways or linger in hallways, ever present yet never fully tangible. Those who stay within the Hollow Creek Lighthouse home for any length of time describe a sense of timelessness. Hours can feel like minutes, and minutes like hours. Shadows shift in ways that defy expectation. And the gentle sway of the lighthouse beacon casts changing patterns across floors and walls. As visitors leave, stepping out into the night air, the house seems to settle back into quiet stillness. Shadows recede, lanterns dim, and the stairways become empty once more. Yet the feeling of presence lingers, a subtle reminder that Hollow Creek Lighthouse home is not merely a building. It is a living memory, a space where past and present converge. And where those who enter carry with them a sense of having shared their world with the unseen. Hollow Creek Lighthouse home endures as a quiet witness to the passage of time. The lives it shelters, and the echoes that refuse to fade. Its stairways, rooms, and corridors continue to host shadows, whispers, and gliding figures. Every creak, every shifting shadow, every floating lantern is a testament to the lingering presence within. For those who enter, the house offers a singular experience, a glimpse into a place where the boundary between the living and the unseen is fragile, ever-shifting, and profoundly alive. Bloodstone Lighthouse home stands solemnly atop a jagged cliff, its stone and timber battered by the relentless winds and salt spray of the open sea. The structure bears the scars of countless storms, and each weathered board tells the story of a place that has endured tragedy and time. By day, the home is quiet, its windows reflecting the gray expanse of ocean and sky, yet at night, it awakens in ways that defy explanation. At night, it awakens in ways that defy explanation. Figures begin to rise from the floorboards, their movements deliberate and silent. They pace the worn halls and creaking porches, shadows elongating with the lantern light that flickers without source. Their forms are faint but unmistakable, hinting at lives long past, tethered to this place by memory and sorrow. Each step they take seems to echo the rhythm of the waves crashing against the cliffs below. Visitors approaching the lighthouse report hearing faint whispers carried on the wind. Names are called softly, questions half-formed, or perhaps echoes of conversations from decades ago. The sound is elusive, seeming to come from every corner of the home at once, yet vanishing when sought directly. It is as if the house itself is speaking, weaving together the voices of those who have lingered here since the tragic shipwrecks that brought notoriety to this coastline. The lighthouse itself looms over the home, long since extinguished as a guiding light, yet its presence remains commanding. From the tower, shadows move with an intelligence that mirrors the rhythm of the sea, figures passing unseen across the stone spiral stairs. Sometimes stopping to gaze outward toward the waves. Lanterns flicker at intervals along the stairwell, illuminating the narrow passage for an instant before darkness resumes its dominion. Inside, the rooms hold the weight of history. Floorboards groan under invisible footsteps. And doors creak as if someone had just passed through. Figures move along hallways, pausing by windows or peering into empty rooms. Each room seems to retain the imprint of a memory, a moment frozen in time, replayed endlessly for those who linger after dark. Visitors may feel a presence watching from the corners, a gaze that is heavy yet intangible. On the porches, figures pace with a rhythm that is almost meditative. Lanterns swing gently in the wind, their light revealing glimpses of faces etched with worry, sorrow, or expectation. Some visitors swear they see hands resting briefly on railings, a shiver of movement that disappears the moment one tries to approach. The house and its inhabitants exist in a delicate balance, suspended between memory and the present, the living and those who are no longer among us. The air around Bloodstone Lighthouse home carries the scent of salt and seaweed, mingled with the faint, acrid tang of old timber. The wind carries sound and shadow alike, amplifying the soft creaks and whispers that fill the house. At times, visitors hear the low hum of voices below the floorboards. Or footsteps pacing the porches above, in perfect harmony with the crashing waves. It is an auditory tapestry that evokes both fear and fascination. Time within the home behaves differently at night. Hours stretch and compress, shadows lengthen, and movements repeat as if caught in an eternal loop. Figures ascend and descend stairwells, pause to peer out over the cliffs, and then vanish, only to reappear moments later. Lanterns flicker and gutter, casting light that shifts with the motions of these spectral occupants. The house itself seems to pulse with life, tethered to the ocean and to the tragedies that have stained its history. Visitors report a sensation of being observed, a subtle awareness that unseen eyes track their every movement. The whispers that drift through rooms carry urgency, or perhaps entreaty, compelling attention but offering no clarity. Some hear their own names, called softly and persistently, carried from one room to another. The experience is disorienting yet mesmerizing, leaving an indelible impression of the home as a place where memory and presence coexist. As dawn approaches, the figures retreat, dissolving into the shadows of the home. Lanterns extinguish without explanation. And the soundscape fades to silence. Yet the house retains its weight, its history, and the memory of those who walked its floors. Bloodstone Lighthouse home stands as a sentinel on the cliff. A place where tragedy and remembrance intertwine. Where the past lingers in every shadow, every creak, and every flicker of light. Where the past lingers in every shadow, every creak, and every flicker of light. Bloodstone Lighthouse home stands as a sentinel on the cliff, a place where tragedy and remembrance intertwine, where the past lingers in every shadow, every creak, and every flicker of light. Those who witness the home at night leave with a sense of awe and unease. The house is more than wood and stone. It is a vessel for memory, a keeper of secrets. And a home to those who never truly departed. Figures rise from the floorboards. Lanterns flicker with no source. And whispers call softly through the night. Bloodstone Lighthouse home exists in a state between the living and the past. Guarding its cliffs and the tragedies that shaped them. An eternal witness to the power of memory and the sea. And the tragedies that shaped them. An eternal witness to the power of memory. And the sea. Ironclad Lighthouse home rises atop a rugged cliff, its silhouette outlined against the restless waves below. The structure is formidable, built of rusting iron and weathered steel, yet it seems almost alive, groaning and creaking under the persistent assault of wind and salt. Visitors approach cautiously, sensing a presence that lingers long after the last light of day fades, a presence that is both watchful and elusive. The exterior iron railings are corroded and cold to the touch, yet they carry the weight of countless footsteps, some living, some long gone. Figures appear along the staircases and walkways, moving silently, their forms indistinct but undeniably present. The wind carries a faint echo of voices, soft footsteps, and a murmur that hints at stories untold. Inside, the lighthouse is a labyrinth of narrow corridors and spiraling staircases. The floors groan with every step, yet the sound is often accompanied by echoes that do not belong to the visitor. Doors open and close with no apparent cause, and shadows twist unnaturally along the walls, elongating and retreating in ways that defy logic. Visitors report a sensation of being followed, of unseen eyes watching each movement, of a presence walking beside them yet never fully revealing itself. The living quarters are sparse and utilitarian, yet they retain the atmosphere of those who once dwelled here. Iron-framed beds stand in rows, their mattresses aged and worn. And the faint scent of salt and iron lingers in the air. Figures are sometimes seen crouched near the beds, motionless for moments, before vanishing as if absorbed by the shadows themselves. The quiet is punctuated by the occasional creak of metal, or distant, echoing footstep, each sound carrying a weight beyond its origin. The staircases spiral upward to the lantern room, the heart of the lighthouse. Each step is measured, deliberate, yet accompanied by subtle, unplaceable sounds. A scrape of metal, a whisper of movement, the shift of unseen weight. Figures appear along the railings, gazing outward toward the storm-tossed waters, their attention fixed on horizons both visible and imagined. When noticed, they dissolve into the air, leaving behind only the sense of eyes that watch tirelessly, guardians of both the lighthouse and the secrets it holds. The lantern room itself is vast and circular, with heavy iron supports and a central light apparatus, now dormant at night. Shadows dance across the walls as if the lighthouse remembers the presence of those who once maintained it. Visitors report glimpses of figures tracing the arc of the light, hands poised on wheels that no longer turn, faces obscured yet filled with intent. The room vibrates with a subtle energy, a rhythm akin to the waves below, carrying whispers and soft echoes that seem to originate both from the past and the very walls themselves. Every room tells a story. The kitchen is filled with faint impressions of utensils in motion. The dining area echoes with ghostly footsteps. And the small study holds the whisper of papers stirring in invisible hands. Ironclad home is a vessel for memory, preserving moments in movement and sound. A repository of lives intersecting with the building over decades. Visitors feel the weight of this history. A presence that is as tactile as it is unseen, shaping their perception of space and time. Outside, the cliffs and ocean are integral to the experience. Waves crash against jagged rocks, mist rolls over the walkways. And the persistent wind carries moans and murmurs that drift into the lighthouse itself. Figures appear along balconies and platforms, observing the waters as they once did, their forms shifting with the fog. The elements themselves participate in the haunting, echoing the cadence of unseen footsteps and soft whispers, binding the building, its history, and the surrounding landscape into a single, continuous presence. Even in stillness, Ironclad Lighthouse Home is alive. Shadows move in corners, figures appear along staircases, and soft murmurs echo across hallways. The lighthouse becomes a conduit, linking the tangible with the intangible, the living with the memory of those who have vanished. The iron structure endures as more than a building, it is a sentinel, a keeper of stories and souls. Figures glide silently along platforms, shadows twist unnaturally in the corners, and soft moans drift over the waves. Every creak of metal, every shifting shadow, every echo of footsteps contributes to the narrative of the place, reminding visitors that Ironclad Lighthouse Home is a guardian of memories, a living monument to presence, absence, and the mysteries that persist beyond the reach of time. Visitors leave with an impression that lingers long after departure. The lighthouse has become a silent companion, its iron bones and shadowed halls resonating with unseen activity. It holds the stories of keepers, of vanished souls, of nights spent watching over waters that have claimed lives. Ironclad Lighthouse Home is a place where history, memory, and presence intertwine. Where figures in shadow pace the halls and whispers echo across the iron staircases. A testament to endurance, vigilance, and the persistent pulse of the unseen. Mistvale Lighthouse stands perched on the cliff, its silhouette barely visible through the fog that sweeps in from the sea. Broken windows gape like hollow eyes, and the faint sound of waves crashing below mixes with the creak of timbers swaying in the wind. The structure is worn, the paint peeling and flaking, revealing the aged wood beneath. Within the lighthouse home, an unusual stillness dominates. Figures appear along hallways, fleeting at first, glimpsed only in the periphery of vision. Their presence is subtle yet persistent, a quiet awareness that something or something is observing each step taken within these walls. The fog that drifts through broken windows does not simply settle on surfaces, it carries with it the feeling of unseen attention, brushing against skin as if aware of every visitor. They stretch along walls and detach from the objects or figures that might have cast them. A shadow by a stairwell may suddenly appear near a doorway, as though the house itself is reshaping space to mirror its own purpose. The movement is smooth, deliberate, and impossible to ignore, creating a sense that the lighthouse home is both observing and interacting with its environment. Visitors feel more than they see. Cold hands brush along arms and shoulders, brief yet unmistakable. The touch is fleeting, often leaving more a sensation than a tangible mark, a reminder that the home is alive with presence. The experience is subtle but profound, shaping the perception of anyone who dares to explore its rooms and corridors. Every sound amplifies the atmosphere. The creaking of floorboards under invisible weight, the distant clatter of a shutter, and the soft whisper of the sea combine into an ambient symphony. Occasionally, a faint murmur drifts through the hallways, carrying the cadence of a voice long forgotten, echoing memories into the present. Time feels altered within the lighthouse. Minutes stretch and collapse unpredictably, and the figures along hallways appear and vanish without warning. Visitors may retrace steps and find that hallways seem longer or shorter than before, doorways have subtly shifted, and shadows have moved in ways that defy logic. The building itself narrates a story. Cracks in walls, warped floorboards, and peeling paint are not merely signs of decay but records of memory. Figures glimpsed in corners, shadows detached from their forms, and the cold brushes of air are all fragments of the lighthouse's ongoing chronicle, a history of occupancy both living and spectral. Every detail gains significance. A swinging lantern, a shadow that moves against the natural light, or the faint shift of mist through a broken window all demand attention. The lighthouse home communicates through these signs, revealing its presence to those who look closely. By morning, the home appears calm. Figures retreat. Shadows settle back into place. And the mist withdraws to the cliffs below. The building returns to its exterior appearance, weathered but serene. Yet the memory of the night lingers with those who entered, carrying the sensation of unseen company and silent observation. By day, it is a decayed building overlooking the ocean, unremarkable and quiet. By night, it transforms into a space where memory, presence, and shadow converge. Figures move through hallways, shadows act independently. And unseen hands interact with visitors, leaving impressions that are simultaneously eerie and mesmerizing. The experience transcends physical space. The lighthouse is more than wood and stone. It is a vessel for memory and consciousness. Each shadow, each figure, each icy touch. Visitors leave carrying not just images but, even in emptiness, the home. Hallways, stairwells, and corners convey meaning. The building records every step, every breath. It stands as a witness, a keeper of memory. Night after night, the lighthouse maintains vigilance. Figures rise, shadows drift, and unseen hands brush across those who enter. The building waits with patience, offering experiences that challenge perception and invite reflection. Mistvale Lighthouse Home is both sentinel and storyteller, preserving its history and presence in quiet, deliberate ways. For those who explore, the lighthouse offers a unique encounter. It is not merely a building but an entity aware of its inhabitants. Each hallway, each shadow, each icy touch conveys a story. Time spent within is an invitation to witness the persistence of presence and memory. Mistvale Lighthouse Home endures, a silent guardian over land and sea, revealing its secrets only to those who venture under the cover of night. Shadowbank Lighthouse Home sits perched atop a craggy cliff, its silhouette stark against the evening sky. The porches and decks stretch narrowly along the edges, silent and still, yet within that silence, the house seems to breathe. Figures appear quietly, their presence felt more than seen. They rise along the railings, pause at corners, and vanish as quickly as they emerge, leaving behind only the faintest impression of movement. Visitors often feel a presence brushing past their shoulders, a gentle reminder that the home is not empty. The lighthouse tower, rising above the main house, casts long, twisting shadows across the decks. Its windows glow faintly, though no lights burn within. The spiral staircase inside the tower echoes with soft, irregular footsteps, though no one is visible. Lanterns, seemingly unlit, pulse with a subtle glow when approached, illuminating fleeting shapes that vanish when examined directly. Within the house, the hallways stretch longer than expected. Doors open and close with no wind to move them, their hinges groaning softly, creating a rhythm that seems almost alive. Each room holds traces of previous inhabitants. The faint scent of wood and candle wax lingering in the air. The home feels alive, observing each visitor's movements, responding to their presence. The bedrooms are shrouded in shadows, their corners deep and dark. Figures sometimes appear at the edge of vision, standing still or pacing slowly. Occasionally, visitors catch glimpses of pale faces reflected in the glass of windows, fleeting images that vanish when directly looked at. The walls themselves seem to pulse subtly, carrying the echoes of footsteps, whispers, and faint murmurs that weave through the house like a living presence. Outside, the cliff drops sharply to the waters below. The tide moves quietly, reflecting moonlight that dances across the surface. Lanterns appear floating along the porches and decks, drifting without hands, casting elongated shadows that twist and stretch across walls and railings. Figures move among these shadows, pacing or pausing, their presence constant yet elusive. Visitors often describe a sense of timelessness within Shadowbank Lighthouse Home. Minutes stretch into hours, and hours seem to condense into a single breath. The house's architecture shifts subtly as the narrow porches seem longer, corridors curve in unexpected ways, and corners appear where none should exist. The home is both guide and observer, drawing visitors deeper into its quiet mysteries. The air carries faint sounds that are difficult to locate. Soft whispers drift through hallways, sometimes carrying faint melodies. Other times merely murmurs that disappear when one attempts to focus. Floorboards creak beneath invisible weight, and the doors and windows respond as if the home itself remembers every movement, every sound, every lingering presence. Even in the central rooms, the feeling of being watched is undeniable. Figures appear along the edges, standing motionless yet somehow aware. Lanterns float along the hallways, illuminating the shadows in a way that makes them feel three-dimensional, almost tangible. Visitors report the sensation of being guided by these presences, steps slowing or turning at their silent suggestion. The lighthouse beacon swings slowly above the cliff, casting sweeping light across the landscape. Each rotation interacts with the home below, shadows shifting, figures appearing and disappearing in the beams. The interplay of light and darkness, presence and absence, creates an atmosphere thick with mystery and curiosity. Visitors leaving the house often describe a lingering sensation, as though the home itself continues to watch them. The porches and decks remain empty, silent once more, but the presence is felt, an echo that persists long after stepping into the open air. Shadowbank Lighthouse Home is not simply a bodega, it is a living memory, a space where past and present converge, where the boundary between seen and unseen is fragile and ever-shifting. Every creak, every drifting lantern, every fleeting figure speaks to the homea's enduring nature. It is a place where shadows tell stories, where whispers guide the unwary. And where time flows differently, measured not in hours but in the rhythm of presence. The lighthouse home endures as both sanctuary and mystery, offering a profound encounter with a space that is alive in ways the mind can scarcely comprehend. Those who enter carry the memory of Shadowbank Lighthouse home with them. They recall the silent figures, the floating lanterns, the subtle brushing of unseen presences, and the quiet pulse of the home that seems to anticipate every move. In this place, the living and the unseen exist together, intertwined, creating an experience that is at once haunting, beautiful, and unforgettable. Shadowbank Lighthouse Home stands as a sentinel over the cliffs, its decks and porches narrow and silent, yet filled with the unseen. Figures continue to pace quietly, shadows glide without sound. And visitors who step inside encounter a home that remembers, observes, and breathes, a living testament to the delicate balance between the world of the living and the world of shadows. Dead Man's Hollow Lighthouse Home stands isolated on a rocky promontory, battered by relentless winds and the endless rhythm of the ocean below. Its stone and timber walls, weathered by decades of storms, hold the weight of countless stories, tragedies, and memories. By day, the home appears dormant, silent and still, a quiet sentinel overlooking jagged cliffs. Yet as night falls, the house awakens, revealing a presence that is impossible to ignore. Figures rise along the empty hallways, moving with purpose and a quiet grace. The figures glide along corridors, pausing by doorways, their forms faint but distinct against the flickering shadows cast by lanterns that light themselves without visible source. Each step they take resonates in the wooden floors, a muted rhythm that blends with the distant crash of waves below. The house becomes alive with motion, a place where past and present intersect in subtle, haunting ways. A place where past and present intersect in subtle, haunting ways. Visitors who approach the lighthouse report hearing distant footsteps, moving through rooms where no one stands. Whispers drift along the hallways, sometimes soft and almost inaudible, other times clear enough to make a name or a question recognizable. The voices are elusive, fading when one attempts to trace their origin, leaving only the sense that the home itself is speaking, guiding attention toward unseen histories that linger in every corner. The porches and stairwells are often where the figures are most visible. Shadows move with an intelligence that mirrors the ebb and flow of the sea. Lanterns swing gently in the wind, their glow illuminating fleeting shapes that vanish the moment the eye focuses. Some visitors feel hands brush the railings, only to find nothing there, a tactile reminder of the homea's spectral occupants. Each hallway and room seems to preserve the memory of those who once lived or perished here, replaying moments in endless repetition. Within the interior, every creak of the floorboards carries a weight beyond the ordinary. Doors open and close softly, and unseen footsteps echo in perfect cadence with the visitora's movements. The walls, though worn and battered, hum with presence, holding the echoes of voices long gone. Figures pause at windows or near fireplaces, their faces etched with sorrow, expectation, or longing, fleeting glimpses of life entwined with the fabric of the home. Fleeting glimpses of life entwined with the fabric of the home. The lighthouse tower looms above, its structure once vital to guiding ships safely along the coast. Shadows move along the spiral staircases, ascending and descending without a sound. Lanterns flickering intermittently, casting eerie, shifting patterns on the stone walls. The light from these lanterns casts glimpses of forms that disappear with the next breath of wind. Every step within the tower feels measured, deliberate, as if the house maintains its own rhythm. As if the house maintains its own rhythm, unseen yet palpable. Outside, the ocean crashes against the cliffs in a constant, mournful cadence. The wind carries whispers from the house into the night, soft, insistent, and haunting. Visitors sometimes hear their own names called, carried from room to room, or along hallways where no one walks. The experience is disorienting, leaving a sense of being observed by eyes that belong to neither the living nor the departed. The home exists in a liminal space, a threshold between memory and presence, where the past continually touches the present. Time within Deadman's Hollow Lighthouse home seems fluid. Moments stretch and compress. Figures repeat movements as if caught in an endless loop. Shadows glide along corridors. Lanterns flicker and gutter. Whispers ripple through the air. The home does not simply exist, it watches, listens, and remembers. As dawn approaches, the figures retreat into the walls and floors, their movements dissolving into the quiet stillness of the house. Lanterns extinguish without explanation, leaving the home appearing dormant once more. Yet the memory of the night lingers, a heavy presence in the mind of anyone who has walked its halls. Deadman's Hollow Lighthouse home is more than timber, stone, and glass, it is a vessel of memory, a keeper of histories, and a home to those who never truly departed. Visitors leave with an indelible sense of awe and unease. Figures rise along hallways, lanterns flicker without source. And whispers carry across empty rooms. The home stands sentinel over the cliffs, holding within its walls the tragedies and lives it has witnessed. Deadman's Hollow Lighthouse home remains a place where the line between the living and the past blurs. Where the echoes of history continue to move through every hallway, stairwell, and shadowed room. Eternal and unyielding. Hollow Oak Lighthouse home stands atop a jagged cliff, overlooking waters that glint under the cold light of the moon. Its structure is solid yet weathered, built from massive oak beams that creak under the weight of time. The wind sweeps across the cliffs, carrying with it the scent of salt and the soft echo of waves crashing below. The exterior is marked by worn railings and steps that lead to the entrance. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the pathways, shifting with the movement of the clouds and the angle of the moonlight. Figures seem to appear and disappear at the edges of vision, glancing silently from windows or lingering along the balconies. The air itself feels charged with expectation, as though the lighthouse is aware of each visitor's presence, observing with patience and quiet authority. Inside, the halls are narrow and dimly lit, with oak beams supporting floors that have carried countless footsteps. The wood creaks in response to every movement, yet often the sound is accompanied by echoes that seem separate, otherworldly. Visitors speak of a feeling of being followed, as if unseen eyes trace their every step. Soft murmurs drift through the corridors, almost indistinct, yet carrying a sense of intent, a whisper of lives intertwined with this building. The living quarters are austere, furnished simply yet with evidence of long use. Beds with oak frames line the rooms, their mattresses worn and imprinted with the memory of past occupants. In the corners, shadows gather and stretch, sometimes forming vague human shapes that vanish when looked at directly. It is as though the house itself remembers those who once walked its halls, preserving moments of their presence for those who come seeking the echo of the past. Staircases wind upward toward the lantern room, the pinnacle of the lighthouse. Each step is accompanied by subtle sounds, a shift of weight, the whisper of movement, the creak of a beam settling. Figures sometimes appear along the railings, gazing outward toward the sea, their forms hazy yet unmistakable. They seem absorbed in duties left unfinished, attending to the lighthouse with unwavering attention. When they vanish, it is almost imperceptible, leaving behind only the lingering sense of being watched and the faintest echo of footsteps on the wooden floors. The lantern room is circular and commanding, with heavy oak supports and a large glass dome. Shadows twist across the walls as if alive, moving with a consciousness that responds to the wind and the tides. Visitors sometimes catch glimpses of figures tracing the arc of the lantern, hands poised on mechanisms that no longer turn, faces obscured yet full of purpose. The room is a nexus where the presence of the past converges with the living, a space suspended between time and memory. Throughout the lighthouse, every room carries evidence of previous lives. The kitchen hums with faint impressions of utensils in motion. The dining area echoes with footsteps that are not there. And the study holds whispers of papers turning in invisible hands. Hollow Oak Lighthouse Home is more than a building. It is a vessel for memory. A place where the past lingers in subtle motion. And where visitors feel the weight of history pressing softly against their senses. The surrounding cliffs and the sea are inseparable from the experience. Waves crash against the rocks below, mist rises from the water, and the wind carries with it moans and murmurs. Figures appear along balconies, watching the waters as they once did, their presence half in shadow, half in mist. Their presence half in shadow, half in mist, amplifies the sensation of presence, shaping the visitor's perception of time and space, and blending reality with memory. Even in quiet moments, the lighthouse remains alive. Shadows move in corners. Figures pace staircases. And soft murmurs drift through the halls. Visitors report a sensation of guidance, an unseen force accompanying them through the corridors. The building becomes a conduit for the stories it holds, connecting those who walk its floors to those who have walked them before. Linking the tangible with the intangible. The living with echoes of lives long past. Connecting those who walk its floors to those who have walked them before, linking the tangible with the intangible, the living with echoes of lives long past. Hollow Oak Lighthouse Home is more than a structure, it is a sentinel of memory, a keeper of presence. Figures glide along platforms and staircases, shadows twist and curl along the walls. And soft murmurs rise from the wooden floors and oak beams. Every creak, every movement, every whisper contributes to a narrative that is both seen and felt. A chronicle of vigilance, endurance, and the persistent pulse of those who have never truly left. Visitors leave with an impression that lingers. The lighthouse does not simply stand as a monument. It exists as an active participant in the lives of those who encounter it. The oak beams, the shadows, the corridors, and the lantern room all resonate with echoes of the past. Hollow Oak Lighthouse Home is a place where history is alive. Where figures in shadow pace the halls. And where faint murmurs and whispers connect the present with memories that refuse to fade. A timeless guardian watching over sea and shore. Black Pine Lighthouse Home rises among the tall pines, a solitary structure perched on a rugged cliff. Its silhouette cuts a dark figure against the night sky, framed by the shadows of trees swaying in the cold wind. The building is weathered, paint flaking and timber creaking, yet it remains steadfast, a sentinel overlooking the restless sea below. The forest surrounding the home seems to breathe with a quiet life. Figures appear between shadows, fleeting and uncertain, glimpsed at the edge of vision. Visitors often report a sensation of being observed, a quiet awareness that someone or something is tracking their movements through the halls and across the grounds. Shadows do not behave as expected. They twist and stretch along walls, detach from objects, and sometimes move independently of their sources. A shadow may linger at the top of a staircase. Then appear again by a window overlooking the cliffs. The air is thick with anticipation, as if the home itself orchestrates the play of light and darkness, subtly guiding the attention of those who enter. Visitors feel more than they see. Cold fingers brush along arms and shoulders, a fleeting touch that is impossible to pin down. Sounds fill the air in unusual ways. The creak of floorboards beneath invisible weight, the soft rattle of a shutter, the low murmur of wind through broken windowsa, each sound is amplified, creating a symphony that seems both natural and carefully orchestrated. Occasionally, a faint whisper drifts along the hallways, carrying the cadence of voices long absent yet still remembered. Time feels altered inside Black Pine Lighthouse home. Minutes stretch and collapse unpredictably. Hallways seem longer or shorter than expected, doorways shift subtly, and shadows appear in places that defy logic. Cracks in walls, warped floors, and peeling paint tell stories of occupancy, both living and spectral. Figures glimpsed in corners, shadows moving independently, and the chill of unseen hands are fragments of the home's ongoing narrative. Observation becomes necessary. Every movement and every sound commands attention. A swinging lantern, the shift of mist through a broken window, or a shadow that does not match any figure demands notice. By morning, the home appears calm. Figures retreat, shadows settle back into place, and the wind carries away the fog from the cliffside. The building returns to its exterior appearance, weathered, quiet, seemingly inert. Yet those who stayed through the night carry with them the memory of presence, a lingering sensation of being watched and felt in the stillness. Black Pine Lighthouse home exists in duality. By day, it is a solitary, weathered building among the trees. By night, it becomes a space where memory, presence, and shadow converge. Figures move through hallways, shadows act independently, and unseen hands interact with visitors, leaving impressions that are simultaneously haunting and mesmerizing. The home transcends physical space. It is more than wood and stone, it is a vessel for memory and consciousness. Each shadow, each figure, each touch contributes to an ongoing dialogue between the seen and unseen. Visitors leave not just with images, but with the sense of a persistent presence within the walls. Even in emptiness, the home communicates. Hallways, stairwells, and corners convey meaning through movement and touch. The building records every step, every breath, every intrusion. Black Pine Lighthouse home is both witness and participant, preserving memory and presence through subtle, deliberate means. Night after night, the home maintains its vigilance. Figures rise, shadows drift, and cold fingers brush against those who enter. The building waits patiently, offering experiences that challenge perception and invite reflection. It is a sentinel and a storyteller, keeping its secrets for those who explore under the cover of darkness. Visitors encounter something beyond the ordinary. Black Pine Lighthouse home is alive with awareness. Hallways, shadows, and the chill of unseen hands convey a narrative that is simultaneously eerie and compelling. Time spent within its walls is an invitation to witness the persistence of presence, memory, and the delicate boundary between the tangible and the unseen. The lighthouse stands, steadfast and observing. Each night it watches over the cliffs, the forest, and the sea. Figures, shadows, and cold touches remain, ready to interact. Black Pine Lighthouse home endures, a silent guardian, revealing its stories only to those who venture. Ghostlight Lighthouse home rises atop a rugged cliff, overlooking restless waters that crash against jagged rocks below. The porches extend outward, narrow and silent, yet alive with a presence that seems to drift along the railings. Lanterns float along these porches with no hand holding them, casting flickering light across the wooden boards, and illuminating shadows that move with a life of their own. Inside the home, corridors stretch farther than expected, twisting gently in ways that make navigation disorienting. Figures appear silently in rooms, standing still or pacing slowly, their movements deliberate yet ethereal. Visitors often feel a presence brushing past their shoulders, a subtle touch that raises goosebumps and makes the hair along the back of the neck stand on end. The rooms themselves are shrouded in soft darkness, shadows pooling in corners and along walls. The floors creak under invisible weight, and doors open and close on their own. The floors creak under invisible weight, and doors open and close on their own, the hinges groaning with a rhythm. The home holds the echoes of footsteps and faint whispers that seem to come from nowhere, yet follow every step a visitor takes. Lanterns drift along hallways, their glow revealing fleeting glimpses of pale faces in mirrors and windows. Figures pause at the edge of vision, vanishing when directly observed, leaving only the memory of their presence. The atmosphere is thick with a sense of awareness, as if the house itself watches and responds to every movement and sound. Outside, the lighthouse tower stands tall above the home, its beacon sweeping slowly over the cliff and the turbulent waters below. The light interacts with shadows along the porches and decks, making figures appear and vanish in the rotation. Visitors often find themselves drawn toward these fleeting images, compelled to follow them along the narrow boards and winding corridors. The home is a place where time seems fluid. Minutes stretch into hours, and hours collapse into moments. The interplay of light and shadow, presence and absence, creates an experience both mesmerizing and unnerving. Every whisper, every drift of a lantern feels intentional, as if the home itself guides those within it through its silent narrative. A place where time seems fluid. The bedrooms are quiet yet alive with unseen observers. Figures may be seen standing at corners, gazing toward windows, or pacing softly along walls. Occasionally, a pale face appears in the shadow of a doorway, fleeting and ephemeral, leaving visitors to question whether it was real or a trick of the light. The home seems to breathe in tandem with those who enter, responding subtly to movement and attention. Lanterns appear in unexpected places, drifting from room to room, illuminating surfaces and objects that seem slightly shifted from their natural positions. Chairs lean at impossible angles, books rest open on pages that could not have been read, and objects hum with faint energy, suggesting the presence of those who once inhabited the space. The house itself feels alive, both guardian and storyteller. Visitors often describe a sensation of being led through the home, guided by unseen hands and the glow of the drifting lanterns. Corridors bend, rooms extend, and staircases descend further than they appear from the entrance. Every step feels deliberate, every shadow intentional, creating a narrative that is both subtle and compelling. The lighthouse beacon above continues its slow sweep, casting a moving light that reveals figures pacing along porches and decks. Even as visitors leave the house, the presence remains. The drifting lanterns disappear. Yet the sensation of being watched lingers. The home leaves an indelible mark. A memory of shadows, pale faces and whispers that seem to follow long after the doors have closed behind them. Ghostlight Lighthouse Home is more than a building. It is a living experience. A convergence of past and present, seen and unseen. Offering a haunting yet unforgettable encounter with the unknown. Every element of the homia, the narrow porches, the floating lanterns, the pacing figurissa. The narrow porches, the floating lanterns, the pacing figurissa. The floating lanterns, the pacing figurissa. It is filled with memory, presence, and the subtle pulse of a home that is alive in ways visitors cannot fully comprehend. Ghostlight Lighthouse Home stands as a sentinel over the cliffs. A place where shadows tell stories, lanterns guide the unwary, and the living brush against the unseen. It is a space of quiet mystery. A home that remembers, watches, and endures. Offering those who enter an experience of wonder, tension, and lasting impression that lingers long after the journey has ended. Ashwood Lighthouse Home stands on a windswept cliff, overlooking the restless sea. By day, it is quiet and solemn, a structure shaped by decades of storms, waves, and salt-laden winds. The paint on the wooden beams has faded, the stone foundation bears the marks of countless years, and the windows reflect the gray light of the ocean below. The stone foundation bears the marks of countless years, and the windows reflect the gray light of the ocean below. Yet as darkness falls, the home awakens, revealing a presence that cannot be seen but is undeniably felt. Shadows glide along the hallways, moving with a grace that suggests awareness and purpose. They pause by doorways and corners, lingering for just a moment before continuing on. Soft footsteps echo across the floors, light but deliberate, resonating through the empty rooms. Visitors report hearing these steps in rhythm with their own movements, as if the house itself is acknowledging their presence and guiding them through its spaces. The porches and stairwells of Ashwood Lighthouse home are often the most active. Lanterns flicker without visible source, casting shifting patterns of light that reveal fleeting shapes. Some visitors feel a brush along their arms or hear a low sigh near their ears, though no one is present. Every room seems to hold the memory of those who lived here, their lives replayed in the shadows, a constant reminder that the home has never truly been empty. Inside, the walls retain echoes of the past. Creaks of floorboards follow the visitor as they walk. Doors open and close softly. And distant whispers seem to float just beyond comprehension. Yet they grow with the attentiveness of the listener. The home is alive in a way that transcends the physical. It remembers, observes, and reacts. The home is alive in a way that transcends the physical, it remembers, observes, and reacts. The lighthouse tower, once a guiding beacon for sailors, stands as a sentinel over the cliffs. Within its spiral staircase, shadows move with silent precision. Lanterns flicker intermittently along the walls, illuminating forms that appear and vanish in an instant. Every step taken here carries weight, as if the home maintains its own rhythm, unseen yet felt, a rhythm that keeps the past and present intertwined. Outside, the ocean crashes relentlessly against the rocky shoreline. The wind carries whispers from the home, faint and haunting, sometimes calling the visitora's name. The sounds of the sea and the home merge into a chorus of presence, a constant reminder that Ashwood Lighthouse home has witnessed countless stories, some of tragedy, some of longing, all preserved in the essence of the structure itself. Time within the home is fluid. Moments stretch and compress, and the shadows move along their predetermined paths, and the shadows repeat gestures as if caught in an endless loop. As the night deepens, the figures retreat into the walls and floors. Lanterns extinguish without explanation, leaving the house in the stillness of darkness. Yet the memory of their movements and whispers remains, heavy and unmistakable. Ashwood Lighthouse home is more than wood, stone, and glass. It is a keeper of histories, a vessel of memory, and a home to those who never truly departed. Visitors leave with an indelible impression. Shadows glide along hallways, lanterns flicker without source. And soft footsteps echo across empty floors. Every corridor and stairwell holds the weight of stories, memories, and the presence of those who remain unseen. Ashwood Lighthouse home endures as a place where the line between past and present blurs. Where the echoes of life continue to move through every room, stairwell, and shadowed corner, eternal and unyielding. The home's presence is subtle yet undeniable, a constant reminder that while it may appear quiet by day, at night it awakens with a life of its own. Each visitor who passes through its doors becomes a part of its ongoing narrative, their steps adding to the rhythm of the house. A place where shadows tell stories, whispers carry across rooms, and the past continues to exist in a delicate dance with the present. A living testament to the persistence of memory, a place where shadows tell stories, whispers carry across rooms, and the past continues to exist in a delicate dance with the present. A place where shadows tell stories, whispers carry across rooms, and the past continues to exist in a delicate dance with the present. Whispers carry across rooms, and the past continues to exist in a delicate dance with the present. The past continues to exist in a delicate dance with the present. By dawn, the house seems dormant once more. The wind calms, the sea retreats into its regular rhythm. And silence returns to the hallways. But for those who experienced its nighttime presence, the home remains vivid in memory. Ashwood Lighthouse home stands as a sentinel over the cliffs. A keeper of stories. And a place where shadows, whispers, and footsteps converge. To remind all who enter that some places never truly sleep. Widowmaker Lighthouse stands isolated on a jagged cliff, its silhouette cutting sharply against the restless night sky. Waves crash violently against the rocks below, sending mist and spray into the air, carrying with them the scent of salt and an uneasy energy. The lighthouse has stood for decades, a steadfast structure of wood and stone, but it is not merely its physical presence that draws attention. It is the weight of memory, the lingering echoes of those who vanished within its walls, and the figures that appear suddenly along its decks. Visitors approach cautiously, their footsteps muted against the worn planks of the walkway. The wind bends the lantern at the top of the lighthouse, casting shifting shadows that dance across the cliffside. Figures emerge at the edges of perception, pale and indistinct, glancing silently before fading back into the darkness. It is as if the lighthouse itself watches, marking the movements of those who venture too close, and the air grows thick with anticipation and unease. The main deck creaks beneath the weight of unseen footsteps. The wood is weathered and slick from sea spray, and the smell of salt and timber fills the air. Figures appear along the railings, stoic and silent, observing the waves as though performing duties long abandoned. Their presence is fleeting but unmistakable, and visitors often report a sudden chill, a whisper of movement, or the sensation of being followed, though the deck appears empty when looked at directly. Inside, the lighthouse is a labyrinth of narrow corridors and steep staircases. The walls are lined with aged timber that groans and shifts with the wind and the weight of time. Shadows cling to corners and archways, forming shapes that almost resemble people. The staircases spiral upward toward the lantern room. Each step echoes faintly, yet often accompanied by another sound, a soft footfall that seems to move independently. The sound of the soft footfall tracing the path of some unseen presence. The living quarters are small and austere, yet the atmosphere is heavy with history. Beds, chairs, and tables show signs of long use, and the rooms feel preserved in a state between occupancy and abandonment. Figures sometimes materialize near the edges of rooms, crouched or standing, observing silently. Their forms are indistinct, often fleeting, yet they leave an imprint, a subtle pressure in the air, a whisper that fades into silence. Visitors sense a story unfolding around them, a narrative of those who once tended the lighthouse and never left. The lantern room is a space of commanding presence. The glass panels rise high above the deck, catching moonlight and scattering it across the walls. Figures appear along the edges, tracing the arc of the lantern as though performing an eternal watch. Their movements are deliberate, unhurried, yet they vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of their steps and the distant cries that drift on the wind. It is a place where the past and present intersect, where the presence of former keepers remains palpable, haunting the structure with an enduring vigilance. Throughout the lighthouse, each room and corridor carries evidence of prior lives. Kitchens hum with faint impressions of activity. The dining area echoes with footsteps that cannot be traced. And the small study seems to whisper of papers turning under invisible hands. Every creak of the timber, every shifting shadow, adds to the sense that the lighthouse itself is alive with memory. The air is dense with stories. Each corner holding a fragment of history. Each figure a testament to lives that have left indelible marks upon the place. From the decks, the sea and cliffs contribute to the atmosphere. Waves crash with a rhythm that echoes the footsteps within. And the mist rising from the water carries the faintest moans and whispers. Figures occasionally appear at the edge of the cliffs, half in shadow, half in fog, as though observing both the waters and the lighthouse. The natural elements and the building itself seem intertwined, creating a continuous interplay of sound, movement, and shadow. That heightens the sense of vigilance and lingering presence. Even in moments of apparent quiet, the lighthouse retains an active presence. Shadows shift, figures pace the halls, and distant whispers drift through the staircases. Visitors often feel a presence alongside them, a weight on their shoulders, a breath in the air. The building connects those who enter with the echoes of those who vanished long ago, allowing past and present to coexist in an uneasy harmony. Widowmaker Lighthouse is more than a physical structure. It is a vessel for memory, a guardian of presence, a place. A story of vigilance, loss, and the persistence of those who remain beyond sight. As visitors depart, they carry with them a sense of the lighthouse's enduring watchfulness. It is a place that does not merely exist, but continues to participate in the lives of those who encounter it. The decks, corridors, and lantern room are alive with history, with figures who move silently. And with whispers that connect the living with the long-gone keepers. Widowmaker Lighthouse Home is a sentinel perched above the sea, a timeless presence where shadows, whispers, and the weight of memory converge. Misty Pines Lighthouse Home stands atop a rugged cliff, framed by tall pines that sway gently in the night wind. Fog drifts through the trees, curling around the structure and spilling through broken windows, lending the building an air of quiet isolation. Its weathered exterior is etched with time, paint peeling and wood groaning softly under the weight of countless seasons. The forest surrounding the lighthouse seems alive. Figures glide silently along the halls, moving with a grace that defies the rigid architecture of the home. Each step through the hallways carries the sensation of being watched, the subtle impression of another consciousness in the space. They twist and stretch along walls, detaching from the objects they should belong to. A shadow may linger near the stairwell, then appear again at a window overlooking the dark cliffs. They move with intention, guiding attention and stirring a quiet unease. As if the home itself orchestrates the interplay of light and darkness. Visitors feel more than they see. Unseen hands brush against arms and shoulders, leaving a chill that lingers long after the contact. It is never violent, but insistent, a reminder of presence that is impossible to locate. These sensations are subtle, momentary, and yet undeniable, leaving a lasting impression on all who pass through the home. The creak of floorboards, the whisper of wind through broken windows, the soft rattle of a shutter at each sound seems amplified, resonating with purpose. Occasionally, a faint murmur drifts along the corridors, echoing like voices from a distant memory, reminding visitors of stories long forgotten yet persisting in the space. Minutes stretch and compress unpredictably. Hallways appear longer, stairwells steeper, and corners curve in ways that defy logic. The home exerts a gentle influence, bending perception and enveloping visitors in its rhythm, drawing attention to its presence without forcing comprehension. Cracked walls, warped floors, and peeling paint are not merely signs of decay. Figures glimpsed in corners, shadows moving independently. And the touch of unseen hands are fragments of a larger story. The home preserves memory, presence, and the faint echo of lives that once moved through its halls. Observation becomes instinct. Each movement, each subtle sound commands attention. A lantern swinging without wind, the shifting of fog through a broken window, or a shadow that behaves contrary to expectation demands notice. The home communicates through these small, deliberate signs, revealing its existence in measured doses. By dawn, calm returns. The figures retreat, shadows settle, and the fog thins, leaving the lighthouse in quiet repose. From the outside, it appears inert, weathered but unremarkable. Yet those who spent the night within carry with them the memory of presence, a lingering sense of having been watched, touched, and guided by unseen forces. Misty Pines Lighthouse Home exists in duality. By day, it is simply a weathered building among trees. By night, it becomes a space where memory, consciousness, and shadow converge. Figures glide silently along halls, shadows act independently. And unseen hands leave their mark, creating a narrative that is both haunting and compelling. It is more than wood, stone, and glass. It is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence. that inhabits the space. It is a space where memory, consciousness, and shadow converge. A space where memory, consciousness, and shadow converge. Where figures glide silently along halls, shadows act independently. And unseen hands leave their mark, creating a narrative that is both haunting and compelling. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home transcends physical structure. It is more than wood, stone, and glass. It is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home transcends physical structure. It is more than wood, stone, and glass. It is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home transcends physical structure. It is more than wood, stone, and glass. It is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home transcends physical structure. It is more than wood, stone, and glass. It is a vessel for memory and awareness. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story. Visitors depart not only with images, but with impressions of the persistent presence that inhabits the space. The home is a vessel for memory and awareness. Even in emptiness, the home speaks. Hallways, stairwells, and corners communicate through movement and touch. The building records every step, every breath, and every intrusion. Misty Pine's lighthouse home is both observer and participant, preserving experience and memory through subtle, deliberate means. Night after night, the home maintains vigilance. Figures rise, shadows drift, and unseen hands brush against those who enter. The structure waits patiently, offering experiences that challenge perception and invite reflection. It is a sentinel, a storyteller, and a keeper of secrets, revealing them only to those who venture through its halls under the cloak of darkness. Visitors encounter something beyond the ordinary. Misty Pine's lighthouse home is alive with awareness. Hallways, shadows, and the touch of unseen hands create a narrative that is simultaneously eerie and captivating. Time spent within its walls invites reflection on presence, memory, and the delicate boundary between what is tangible and what is unseen. The lighthouse stands steadfast, watching. Each night it surveys the cliffs, the forest, and the encroaching fog. Figures, shadows, and unseen touches remain, ready to interact with those who dare to step inside. Misty Pine's lighthouse home endures as a guardian of mysteries, revealing its stories only to those who traverse its corridors under the veil of night. Blackroot Lighthouse Home stands on a cliff overlooking churning ocean waves, its silhouette sharp against the moonlit sky. The wooden floors and beams appear black under the pale light, absorbing it and giving the home an air of quiet solemnity. The structure seems to breathe with the rhythm of the sea, every creak and groan echoing like a whisper from another time. Figures emerge briefly along the narrow decks and porches, moving with deliberate slowness before vanishing as if swallowed by the shadows. Visitors report glimpses of these figures, pale and indistinct, caught in the corner of the eye, only to disappear when directly observed. Lanterns hang in midair or drift along the hallways, casting shifting light that reveals the outlines of rooms and corners otherwise lost to darkness. Inside the home, corridors stretch farther than expected, twisting around one another and creating a sense of endlessness. Doors open and close with no wind, the hinges groaning softly as if the house itself breathes. The floors occasionally creak beneath invisible footsteps, and visitors feel subtle brushes along their shoulders, a gentle but unmistakable presence that follows them through each room. The air carries faint chanting, a sound that seems to rise from the ocean wind itself, curling through the rafters and sliding across the wooden floors. It is almost imperceptible at first, a low hum that grows and diminishes like the waves crashing against the cliff below. The chant is neither threatening nor welcoming, it exists as part of the homia's essence, a memory or echo of lives long gone, intertwined with the very structure of the lighthouse. A memory or echo of lives long gone, intertwined with the very structure of the lighthouse. Intertwined with the very structure of the lighthouse. In the rooms, shadows gather in corners, forming shapes that shift and vanish as visitors approach. Pale faces appear in the drifting lantern light, lingering for a moment before dissolving into darkness. The effect is subtle yet profound, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation and quiet unease. Every step, every glance, feels guided by an unseen hand, drawing visitors deeper into the homia's mysteries. Drawing visitors deeper into the homia's mysteries. The lighthouse tower above slowly rotates, its beam slicing across the waves and the cliffside. The moving light interacts with shadows inside the home, revealing figures pacing along decks or hovering at thresholds. Visitors often find themselves drawn toward these apparitions, compelled to follow, yet never fully able to reach or confront them. The house seems to move around those who enter, subtly shifting spaces and hallways as if to guide, test, or observe. The bedrooms are quiet, yet alive with the presence of unseen watchers. Figures stand at the edge of vision, tracing the outlines of walls and furniture with subtle movements. Occasionally, pale faces appear at doorways, only to vanish when approached. Lanterns drift into rooms unbidden, illuminating surfaces and objects that seem slightly altered from their natural positions. Suggesting memories frozen in time or spirits lingering in familiar spaces. The home seems to respond to visitors, a sentient space aware of every movement and glance. Corridors bend and expand, staircases descend farther than they should. And hallways appear longer than their measurements suggest. The interplay of light and shadow, presence and absence, creates a narrative both silent and compelling. Guests feel as though they are walking through layers of history, glimpses of lives once lived. And echoes of emotions long past. The ocean wind continues to carry faint chanting, mixing with the creak of boards and the whisper of shadows. Lanterns drift across rooms and decks, leading attention to corners and stairways that might otherwise remain unnoticed. The presence within the home is persistent but not aggressive, creating a tension that is both captivating and unsettling. Every detail, from the swaying beams to the drifting light, works in harmony to create a living story of the lighthouse itself. Even when visitors leave the home, the memory lingers. The haunting figures, the floating lanterns, and the subtle, unseen touches persist in the mind, leaving a sense of wonder and unease. Blackroot Lighthouse Home is more than a building. It is an experience. It is a place where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and is an experience. It is a place where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and is a place where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and is an experience. It is a place where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and is a place where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, and is an experience. It is a place where the living meet the echoes of the past. Where light and shadow interact in ways that defy expectation, and where every step taken feels both guided and observed, where the living meet the echoes of the past. The home endures, watching over the cliff and the restless ocean. Its floors and beams, black under moonlight, continue to absorb and reflect the presence of those who enter. Shadows move and figures emerge, the chanting continues to ride the wind, and the lanterns drift silently along porches and hallways. Blackroot Lighthouse Home is a sentinel of memory, mystery, and presence. offering visitors a hauntingly immersive encounter that lingers long after the doors are closed and the cliff falls behind them. Every element of the home contributes to its haunting narrative. The pacing figures move, their forms silhouetted against the faint moonlight, carrying with them the echo of the lighthouse. The haunting beauty of a home that endures. Blackroot Lighthouse Home is not simply a place to be seen. It is a place to be felt. It is an encounter with memory, shadow, and presence. A journey through spaces where past and present converge. And where the unknown lingers just beyond the reach of perception, waiting to be discovered with each step, each glance, and each breath. Hollowbrook Lighthouse Home perches on a rocky shoreline, where waves crash against jagged stones and a creek winds near its foundation. By day, the structure is quiet and weathered, its paint faded from years of salt and wind. The wooden beams creak under the weight of time, and the windows reflect the gray light of the sea. Yet, as night falls, the home awakens in ways that cannot be seen but can be felt. Figures move along staircases and corridors, their presence subtle but undeniable. Shadows glide along walls, pausing at corners and doorways before continuing their silent path. Soft footsteps echo across the floors, light and deliberate, as if the house itself guides them through its rooms. Visitors report feeling a brush of air, a faint sigh, or the gentle pressure of unseen eyes following their movements. Lanterns flicker without source, casting shifting patterns of light across the hallways. The staircases hold the most activity, where shadows ascend and descend with careful precision. Visitors sense a rhythm to the home, a quiet awareness that responds to their presence, marking their passage through the space. Each step taken seems acknowledged, each pause mirrored in the subtle movement of the unseen figures. The rooms retain echoes of the past. Doors creak softly, floorboards groan under weightless pressure, and distant whispers float just beyond comprehension. The sounds are faint at first, blending with the natural rhythm of the night, yet grow perceptible to those attuned to the home's presence. Hollowbrook Lighthouse Home is not merely a structure. It is a vessel for memory, preserving the essence of those who once lived and worked within its walls. In the lighthouse tower, shadows spiral along the staircase, lanterns flickering intermittently along the walls. Forms appear and vanish, moving with an intelligence that suggests awareness. The spiral seems endless, a loop of motion and memory, carrying both the present visitor and the echoes of past inhabitants through its vertical expanse. Every step taken feels measured against the rhythm of the house, each pause resonating in the silent spaces around. Each pause resonates in the silent spaces around. Outside, the creek winds gently through the property, its waters reflecting the dim light of the moon. Figures are sometimes seen along its banks, moving with a quiet purpose, unseen yet felt. The sound of footsteps across wooden bridges or along the creek's edge carries in the night air, merging with the soft lapping of water against rocks. Visitors often feel an intangible presence, as if the home extends beyond its walls, encompassing the land and water around it. Time within Hollowbrook Lighthouse Home is fluid. Shadows repeat motions as if caught in endless loops. The past replaying itself alongside the present. The home seems to react to the attentiveness of those within it, drawing focus toward areas where memory lingers strongest. Every room, hallway, and staircase carries layers of history. Stories replayed in quiet gestures and fleeting forms. And fleeting forms. As the night deepens, the figures retreat into walls and floors. Lanterns extinguish without explanation, leaving the house in the stillness of darkness. Yet the sensation of movement and presence remains, heavy and unmistakable. Hollowbrook Lighthouse Home exists in a state between past and present, a place where memory and awareness intertwine to create a living experience. Visitors leave the home with impressions that linger. Shadows glide along staircases. Lanterns flicker with no source. Footsteps echo across empty rooms. The sense of being observed, of moving through a space alive with history, remains vivid long after leaving. Hollowbrook Lighthouse home is more than wood and stone. It is a keeper of stories, a guardian of memory, and a place where unseen figures continue to move in quiet repetition. By dawn, the house seems dormant once more. The creek flows gently, waves crash against the rocky shore. And silence returns to hallways and staircases. Hollowbrook Lighthouse home stands as a sentinel over the cliffs. A place where shadows, whispers, and footsteps converge. To remind all who enter that some places never truly sleep. The experience of Hollowbrook Lighthouse home is subtle yet undeniable. Every corridor, staircase, and room carries traces of unseen inhabitants. Figures move with grace and purpose, lanterns flicker without source. And the house responds to the presence of those who traverse its spaces. Memory and awareness converge, leaving an indelible mark on every visitor. A reminder that this home, perched above the sea, is alive in ways that transcend the visible. Even as the first light of morning brushes the cliffs, the house retains its essence. Shadows retreat, lanterns vanish, and the wind carries only the natural sounds of the coast. Yet the impression of movement, presence, and memory remains. Hollowbrook Lighthouse home endures as a space where past and present coexist, a structure imbued with history. A home where shadows glide, footsteps echo, and the creek murmurs along its foundation. Eternal and unyielding. Blood Willow Lighthouse perches precariously atop jagged cliffs, where the sea crashes relentlessly against the rocks below. The wind carries the briny scent of the ocean and whispers through the branches of willow trees that sway unnaturally along the cliff's edge. Visitors approaching the lighthouse often pause, feeling the weight of history and the unsettling stillness that seems to hang in the air. Shadows cling to every corner, and figures crouch near the edges of the cliffs, watching silently before vanishing into the night. The path to the lighthouse is narrow and worn, lined with weathered stones and gnarled roots of the wind-twisted willows. Every step seems amplified in the quiet, accompanied by faint sounds that are almost imperceptibly soft laughter, a sigh of the wind, or the subtle shift of a figure that disappears when directly observed. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation, as if the lighthouse itself holds its breath, waiting for visitors to cross the threshold and enter its domain. The exterior of the lighthouse is imposing, a mixture of stone and timber worn by years of salt, wind, and rain. Its windows, clouded with age and spray, reflect the moonlight in irregular patterns, casting dancing shadows on the surrounding cliffs. Figures can be seen pacing along the perimeter, sometimes crouched low among the roots of the willow trees, observing intruders with quiet vigilance. They move slowly, deliberately, as though performing an eternal duty, their presence felt more than seen. Inside, the lighthouse is a labyrinth of narrow corridors and steep staircases that twist and turn with little warning. Each step echoes faintly, yet often accompanied by an additional sound, a soft footfall that cannot be accounted for, a whisper that drifts through the hallways, or a fleeting shadow passing just beyond vision. The wooden beams groan under the weight of time, yet the air feels alive, carrying traces of the past in every draft and creak. Yet the air feels alive, carrying traces of the past in every draft and creak. The living quarters are austere, with beds, chairs, and tables that appear untouched yet lived in. Figures sometimes appear at the edges of rooms, crouching or standing silently, only to vanish moments later. Visitors report the feeling of being watched, a brush of air across the back of the neck, and faint whispers that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The lantern room is the heart of the lighthouse, a space of commanding presence and haunting beauty. Figures appear along the edges, pacing slowly, tracing the path of the lantern as though engaged in a ritual that has continued for decades. Their movements are unhurried, almost meditative, yet they vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of their steps. Leaving only the echo of their steps and the distant sound of waves crashing below. Throughout the structure, the soundscape adds to the unnerving atmosphere. The wind whistles through cracks and crevices, mingling with the distant moans of the sea. And the soft, elusive laughter of unseen figures. Visitors feel the presence of those who came before, their footsteps following silently behind. Their whispers brushing past the walls and across the floors. Every room, corridor, and deck carries the weight of memory, the persistence of presence, and the quiet insistence that the past has not truly left this place. The decks offer a commanding view of the cliffs and the ocean beyond, but the beauty is tempered by unease. Figures crouch near the edges, watching, waiting, and occasionally moving along the perimeter. And the sigh of the wind through railings. And the soft murmur of whispers that seem to follow the path of visitors as they move along the deck. Even in moments of apparent calm, the lighthouse remains alive with subtle movements. Shadows shift along the walls, figures pace the hallways. And the faintest echoes of laughter or whispers seem to come from nowhere yet everywhere at once. The building connects the present with the past. The living with those who have vanished. And the tangible with the intangible. It is a place of observation, of vigilance. And of lingering presence that cannot be ignored. Bloodwillow Lighthouse is not merely a building, but a sentinel, a repository of memory and unseen watchers. Figures move along decks and staircases, shadows twist in corners, and whispers travel through halls. Creating an environment where the past coexists with the present. Every visitor feels the weight of history, the subtle pressure of presence, and the delicate balance between observation and intrusion. This is a place where stories are etched into the walls, where the unseen and the known intersect, and where the lighthouse itself continues to perform its eternal watch. As visitors depart, the impression lingers of the soft sway of willow trees against the wind, the distant crash of waves against cliffs, the fleeting glimpse of a figure crouched along the edge. It is a keeper of memory, a witness to loss, and a place where whispers, shadows, and soft laughter persist long after the living have left. The lighthouse remains, ever watchful, a timeless presence suspended between land and sea, past and present, the living and the unseen. Phantom Creek Lighthouse home perches on a rugged cliff, surrounded by dense pine trees that sway under the weight of the night wind. The fog rolls in from the ocean, curling around the structure, seeping through broken windows and open doorways, filling the home with a quiet, ethereal presence. Lanterns illuminate the porches with no source, casting a soft, ghostly glow across the weathered wood, hinting at life where none should exist. Inside, the hallways breathe with movement. Figures rise along corridors, appearing and disappearing at the edge of perception. Their motions are fluid and deliberate, gliding without sound, leaving behind a fleeting awareness of presence. They do not acknowledge the living, yet their existence is palpable, a silent rhythm that defines the space. Shadows do not obey the laws of structure. They stretch along walls and floors independently of the objects that should anchor them. A shadow may linger near a staircase, then drift to a window overlooking the cliffs. They twist and shift as though alive, moving with intention, shaping the perception of those who venture through the home. Visitors sense more than they see. Unseen hands brush against arms and shoulders, leaving a chill that lingers and a quiet awareness of intrusion. The touch is never violent, yet it is undeniable, a constant reminder that the home is occupied by something unseen. Every step through the hallways heightens this awareness, drawing attention to movements both subtle and purposeful. Sounds resonate strangely in the home. The creak of a floorboard, the rattle of a shutter, or the whisper of wind through broken panes carries with an unnatural clarity. Occasionally, a murmur drifts along the corridors, indistinct yet insistently present, like fragments of voices preserved in the structure itself. Each sound serves as a signal, a reminder that the home records every movement and every breath within its walls. Time in Phantom Creek Lighthouse home is fluid. Minutes stretch and compress unpredictably. Hallways seem longer, staircases steeper, and corners curve beyond comprehension. Every detail carries significance. Visitors find themselves unsure of how long they have remained within its halls, yet acutely aware of every sensation. The peeling paint, warped floors, and broken glass are more than signs of decay. Figures glimpsed in corners, shadows acting independently. And the touch of unseen hands are all fragments of a larger narrative. The home preserves memory, consciousness, and the faint echoes of lives once lived within its walls. Observation becomes instinctive. Every movement, every sound demands attention. A lantern swinging without wind, a shadow that defies expectation, or a figure appearing at the periphery draws the eye and the mind. The home communicates through these subtle cues, revealing itself without revealing all, offering glimpses of presence that are fleeting yet unforgettable. By dawn, the home returns to apparent calm. Figures retreat, shadows settle, and the fog thins, leaving the lighthouse seemingly inert. From the exterior, it appears as it always has, weathered, silent, and unremarkable. Yet those who have wandered its halls carry the memory of being watched, touched, and guided by forces that elude comprehension. Phantom Creek Lighthouse Home exists in duality. By day, it is a weathered structure among the pines, a relic of time. By night, it becomes a vessel where memory, consciousness, and shadow converge. Figures glide along hallways, shadows act independently, and unseen hands leave their mark, creating a narrative that is simultaneously haunting and compelling. It is more than timber, stone, and glass. It is a container for awareness and memory. Every shadow, every figure, every touch contributes to the ongoing story of the home. Visitors depart with impressions of persistent presence that linger long after they leave, a subtle awareness of the home's enduring consciousness. Even in apparent emptiness, the home speaks. Hallways, stairwells, and corners communicate through movement and touch. The building records every action, every breath, every intrusion. Phantom Creek Lighthouse Home functions as both observer and participant, preserving experience and memory in ways that are subtle yet undeniable. Night after night, it maintains vigilance. Figures rise, shadows drift, and unseen hands brush against intruders. The structure waits patiently, offering experiences that challenge perception and invite reflection. Visitors encounter something beyond the ordinary. It serves as sentinel, storyteller, and keeper of secrets, revealing them only to those who enter its halls under the cloak of night. Phantom Creek Lighthouse Home is alive with awareness. Hallways, shadows, and the brush of unseen hands create a narrative that is both eerie and captivating. Time spent within its walls fosters reflection on presence, memory, and the delicate boundary between the tangible and the unseen. The lighthouse endures, watching silently. Each night it surveys the cliffs, the forest, and the encroaching fog. Figures, shadows, and unseen touches remain, ready to interact with those who dare enter. Phantom Creek Lighthouse Home stands as guardian of mysteries, offering its stories only to those who traverse its halls under the veil of night. Darkwater Lighthouse Home perches atop a jagged cliff, the waves below crashing against the rocks with a relentless rhythm. Its silhouette rises sharply against the moonlight, dark and imposing. The wooden decks and staircases gleam faintly under the night sky, blackened by years of salt and wind. Shadows move along the edges, gliding silently, as if the house itself breathes in sync with the ocean below. Figures rise briefly along the decks and staircases, moving with deliberate, almost cautious steps. They are pale and indistinct, vanishing the moment one focuses on them, yet leaving a sense of presence that lingers in the mind. Inside, the house is a labyrinth of hallways and staircases. Corridors stretch farther than expected, twisting and turning as if the home reshapes itself to accommodate unseen inhabitants. Doors open and close with no wind, their hinges groaning softly, echoing through the empty spaces. Visitors report the sensation of footsteps behind them, subtle yet persistent, brushing close enough to be felt but never seen. Whispers ride on the salt-laden air, rising from the floors and fading into silence, mingling with faint, distant cries carried from rooms long abandoned. The air is thick with a sense of memory, as if every surface, every beam, every creaking board contains echoes of lives long past. Visitors feel the weight of the house, a living presence that watches and guides them. Hallways bend and stretch, staircases descend farther than they should, and the decks above the cliff sometimes appear longer, carrying shadows just out of reach. It is a place where perception is challenged, and where reality seems to sway with the rhythm of the unseen. Lanterns drift silently through rooms, illuminating spaces that seem to breathe and shift. Figures stand at thresholds, their pale faces catching the lantern light before fading into shadow. In the bedrooms and study rooms, the presence is more tangible. A subtle coldness lingers where a figure once stood, and visitors often find furniture slightly rearranged. The house is alive with these traces, each one a story waiting to be felt rather than told. The ocean wind carries more than the sound of waves. It brings faint chants, soft and melodic, weaving through the hallways and curling around corners. The sound rises and falls like the tide itself, suggesting ritual or remembrance. A continuous thread connecting the present to the past. Visitors feel it most strongly near windows overlooking the sea, where shadows seem to gather and lanterns drift more slowly, as if respecting the rhythm of the chant. The decks and porches above the cliff are particularly haunted. Figures pace quietly, their movements measured and deliberate. Occasionally, a lantern floats past a visitor, illuminating a face that lingers only for a heartbeat before dissolving into darkness. The effect is disorienting, blending the line between what is seen and what is imagined. Even those who have visited before find themselves hesitant to step forward, drawn by curiosity yet held back by an unspoken warning. Rooms inside the home continue this interplay of light and shadow. Hallways lengthen and contract, walls seem to breathe, and corners conceal both stillness and motion. The house guides their attention, revealing certain spaces while concealing others, creating a narrative that is experienced rather than explained. Despite its haunting, the home carries a beauty that is impossible to ignore. The pale lantern light on darkened wood, and the subtle movement of shadows, combine to create an atmosphere that is both captivating and unsettling. Each visitor leaves with a sense of having walked through a living memory, encountering echoes of lives once present and sensations that linger beyond the threshold of comprehension. The home itself groans occasionally, a low sound that rises from the floors and beams. It is a warning, subtle yet unmistakable, that the house is aware of those who enter, observing and responding. Footsteps echo on the staircases, whispers follow through hallways, and faint cries drift from rooms that may not exist in the visitor's memory but are very real in the home's. Every creak of the floor, every flicker of light, and every shadowed figure contributes to the impression that Darkwater Lighthouse home is alive, a sentinel of memory and presence. Even when leaving, the memory of the home persists. The haunting figures, the floating lanterns, the whispers, and faint chants remain in the mind. Visitors speak of a presence that follows them beyond the doors, an echo of the house that lingers in quiet moments. Darkwater Lighthouse home is not merely a building, it is an experience. It is a space where the living encounter the echoes of the past, where light and shadow tell stories without words, and where every step feels guided by unseen hands. The home endures, standing watch over the cliff and the turbulent sea. Figures rise along decks and staircases, lanterns drift through rooms, and the ocean wind carries faint chants and whispers. Visitors feel the weight of its presence, hear the subtle groan of the floors, and sense the stories etched into every surface. Darkwater Lighthouse home is a living narrative, a place where memory, presence, and mystery converge, offering a haunting, immersive experience that lingers long after the final steps are taken away from its doors. Every element of the home contributes to its haunting tale. The darkened wood, the drifting lanterns, the pacing figures. The pacing figures, and the chanting wind all work in harmony to create an atmosphere that is immersive, tense, and unforgettable. Visitors leave with a profound awareness of the home's presence, carrying with them the quiet echoes, the faint shadows, and the undeniable sense that Darkwater Lighthouse home continues to watch, guide, and endure. Thank you, my dear friend, for walking with me tonight through the haunted lighthouse keeper homes of Massachusetts. These homes may seem quiet by day, but by night they are alive with shadows, whispers, and spirits that refuse to rest. If you ever wander through a lighthouse home at night, and fog drifts low, or shadows move along decks, or lanterns appear floating above rooms, remember this. Not every shadow is harmless. Not every floorboard is safe. And not every figure belongs to the world of the living. Step carefully. Keep your lanterns close. And may the spirits leave you to return until our next haunted journey, my dear friend.